As we all know, in 2022, Elden Ring won Game of the Year. But what some of you may not know is that Game of the Year Elden Ring had some unknown prequels. These prequels date back to the late 2000s, and one of them is Dark Souls. I was introduced to Dark Souls by my friend Martin, who frequently browses underground indie games, so it's not surprising that even as niche as it is, Martin would have found it. And just so no one gets their hopes up that I found this new Elden Ring clone, this game is absolute garbage. I've been waiting to finish the entire game before writing this video, and after 181 hours, I finally completed my first playthrough. This video is going to follow me along my first playthrough, and offer some biting criticism on Dark Souls Remastered. But before we get into the video, let me restate that this game sucks. When you first load into Dark Souls, you must create your playable character. Much to my dismay, there was no battle passes, bundles, or skins I could use in-game currency to buy and customize my character. Despite this missed opportunity for monetization, I sculpted a being fit for this journey and headed into the first location. The Undead Asylum is pretty standard for your first location. Not much to say except the boss of the area. Asylum Demon is completely unkillable. You're given a broken sword hill and it just does no damage. I tried over and over again to kill this oversized reptile and nothing worked. Having such a hard, nay, near impossible to kill boss at the beginning of the game demoralizes the player, and it made me want to give up right then and there. Fortunately for me, the devs forgot to close a door on the left hand side of the arena, so I could glitch past the fight, pick up some items that From Software forgot to remove in post-production, and kill Asylum Demon. Following this unbearable fight, you leave the asylum, and are taken to Firelink Shrine. However, being picked up and flown across by a crow is a stupidly bad mechanic, as it devalues having a robust public transport system for the people of this world, overall forcing me to suspend my belief that this method of transport is in any way effective. From Firelink Shrine you can progress to the first area of the game, the catacombs. And in my opinion, the catacombs is a horrible first area. Enemies are way too difficult, and the boss, Pinwheel, kept glitching and respawning multiple versions of itself. And then following all of your troubles, you're quote-unquote rewarded with Tomb of the Giants, which was just too dark to do anything in, so I just went back to Firelink Shrine. After the catacombs, I went to Undead Burg, which, compared to the catacombs, was way too easy. Apparently all game design knowledge surrounding progression was just thrown out the window for this level. Upon trying to fight Taurus Demon, this berserk rip-off enemy, he deployed an undodgeable attack by throwing himself off the bridge. Being that this was my first time, I thought that this was part of his build, and so I followed suit and was met with death. This was just a lazy attempt to trick the player and install artificial difficulty into your boss fights. Following through Undead Burg, we meet Andre, the blacksmith. His character design was shockingly bad, and really upsetting to see whitewashing so prominent in Dark Souls. To tease the player base with a guest appearance from American singer-songwriter Andre 3000, and then not to follow through with an accurate representation of the famed Outkast rapper, was overwhelmingly disappointing. It was a poor character design for a game that supposedly prides itself on its historical accuracy. The next boss is the Bell Gargoyles, and the Gargoyles, once being statues, now move when you look at them. This completely distances Dark Souls from the source material it was based upon, TARDIS, a 2010 Doctor Who game. A game that Miyazaki repeatedly cites as one of his biggest inspirations for Dark Souls in numerous interviews, even stating that Dark Souls can be considered as a spiritual successor for TARDIS. After fighting 3 bosses, you would have obtained a lot of runes at this point, which can be used to level up your character at sites of grace, like in Elden Ring. Sadly though, you cannot upgrade your iframes or the speed you drink your flask of Crimson Tears. It's truly a missed opportunity that From Software became obviously aware of and fixed it in the far superior Dark Souls 2. Bravo From Software, another masterpiece. Due to inadequate game design, I accidentally skipped Lower Undead Burg and the Depths, as I picked the Master Key as my starting gift and went straight to Blighttown. It was not until my 4th playthrough did I find these areas and their boss fights. One of these was the Capra Demon, which was a surprisingly good fight, and it gave me a slight understanding of why some people like this game. Blighttown is a very atmospheric and well-designed level. I particularly enjoyed the water wheel segment and the unique poison swamp layering the ground. a type of terrain that I've failed to find in any other From Software game. The quelaag fight completely destroys the pace of the game, by forcing the player to sit through an unskippable cutscene. No matter how hard I try, it keeps playing in full. Personally, in such a male-dominated game, I enjoyed the inclusion of spiders to bring a bit of diversity to the boss roster. However, following this fight, I felt immense guilt that I'd slaughtered the only spider representation so far, and after talking to this man on the ground who was like totally soying out, I awarded quelaag with 30 humanity that quelaag had rightly earned from me for killing me 30 times. Due to the pace-breaking quelaag cutscene, I spammed the skip button on the next bell ringing cutscene to get myself back into the flow. Unfortunately, because of poor oversight on the developer's half, this led me to have no idea what I was doing following the ringing of the bells. Through the Dark Souls fandom wiki, I was able to find out I had to go to Sans' fortress. This run back was so long and bad, even when set in my favourite region so far. I'm glad Miyazaki saw the error in such game design and gave the player /TP and a horse in Elden Ring, which was Game of the Year. Sans' fortress was kinda cool as it was the first instance of puzzles being used in video games, something that Portal 2 would shamelessly steal 5 months prior, which he would then go on to win Game of the Year. Again, From Software was unable to properly code a boss, as the Iron Golem threw me off the map without killing me, and then decided to have a quick nap mid-fight. On your way to Anor Londo, From Software once again diminishes the need for public transport, by adding more things that carry you. Despite its introduction, Anor Londo has 2 main highlights, the Roblox obby and the archers that shoot at you. For a game that prides itself on its puzzle segments, these areas do shine through. Bravo From Software. After traversing through the castle, we meet Ornstein and Smog, the most Fodian of bosses yet. Ornstein's character is flawed, as Dark Souls does not have a cooking or eating mechanic like in its superior Elden Ring, which was Game of the Year. Therefore, there is a large plot hole on how Ornstein got so gourmand. This is never explained, which again is questionable for a game that prides itself on its culinary realism. Ornstein gets bigger and kills Smough, and then I kill Big Ornstein. It was almost an artistic reflection of how I felt playing this game. Perchance. We are met with another unskippable cutscene and our character being locked in place, again destroying the pacing of this game. Now we enter the second half of the game, which is widely praised for its superiority over the first half by its fanbase. The ability to /TP to different sites of grace now becomes part of our build, something that Minecraft would shamelessly steal 2 years prior. Remembering the cutscene at the beginning of the game, and the words told to me by Guinevere, I am now on a path to fell each great enemy and collect their remembrance to fill the big bowl thing. I make my way from Firelink Shrine to kill the 4 kings, but the developers accidentally made a massive drop before the fight, killing me each time. Whether this is an unpatched glitch, or the developers merely forgot that fall damage was a mechanic they added to their own game, I can't say, but neither option is a good look for From Software. Instead, I decided to go fight Nito. Dark Souls then expects you to backtrack to the very first part of the game, the catacombs, and progress further into darkness. If only they brought back the torch mechanic from Dark Souls 2. I was able to enter his arena, but sadly the multiplying pinwheel glitch affected this area too, with many of them being scattered around. Though I was severely overleveled for such an early game boss, due to the many enemies in the area, I struggled to figure out who Nito really was, and was sidetracked into killing the skeletons for my first 7 attempts. After getting the Nito remembrance and runes, I moved on to Seath. Unfortunately, when entering Seath's arena, there is an unskippable cutscene of your character getting murdered and being placed in a prison cell. From Software does a good job at presenting its critique of the prison system and gang violence that happens within it, taking a brave but needed stance in favour of prison abolition, as it encourages you to kill the prison guards, who I may add are depicted as snakes, often associated with being untrustworthy, deceitful, and reinforcing the messaging of police being devilish and only looking out for bourgeois interests. Duke's Archives is fairly underwhelming, taking heavy inspiration from the Dark Academia Pinterest aesthetic, but where it really shines through is the Crystal Obby section. Bravo From Software. The Seath fight was great to see scaly or post-op scaly representation, an often forgotten sect of the furry community. Despite this, you still have to kill Seath, a very upsetting moment for players to kill someone with such a cool persona. Becoming curious to see if there were any more furries in Dark Souls, I was happily greeted with the Sif fight, though the Wolfsona and sword are far too big to be realistic, confusing for a game that prides itself on accurate canine anatomy and weaponsmithing. On my way out, I met another furry player who gave me insight on how to bypass the full damage glitch From Software carelessly left in their game. After travelling back to New Londo and jumping down the hole, the kind soul's advice worked and I could beat the 4 kings. Again, From Software's blatant disregard for this game shows is there's only 1 king, not 4 as the fandom wiki and boss health bar said there would be. Then onto the final Lord rune, which I was told would be found in Los Isoleth, so I'd have to return to Quelaag and her soy boys. The first boss on our trip was Ceaseless Discharge. A little known fact amongst the fanbase is that this boss is named after Miyazaki's lifelong struggle with Crohn's disease. So for this fight, I entered the mind of someone who has Crohn's disease and thought, what would they do? So once I had triggered the boss fight, I ran all the way back to the site of grace, as if I had Crohn's, I would probably need to go to the toilet right about now. By doing so, I discovered that the puzzle formula is back in full swing. The player is rewarded for tactically retreating, as the boss's HP disappears quickly, as if it was diarrhea flushing out of Miyazaki's rectum, and with that, Ceaseless dies. On my way back, I spotted that From Software had skillfully brought back the reused boss mechanic from Elden Ring with the Taurus demon. While progressing towards Los Isoleth and fighting new enemies for the area, I chose to explore more rather than progress with the boss of the area. After walking down this tree, I was met with a massive door, and to my surprise, the door opened. I was allowed quick passage through to Los Isoleth. This door renders at least 2 bosses completely obsolete, and was a major misplay on the devs' half to let this easily accessible door be left unlocked. The Bed of Chaos was just a bridge away, and upon fighting it, I met by far the most intellectually stimulating puzzle yet, something previous bosses have failed to achieve, with only Ceaseless Discharge coming close. I have no criticisms of this boss. And with all of the great enemy runes gathered, I could move on to Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, the final boss of Dark Souls. Though canonically, Gwyn has lived for eons, toppled an entire world order, and gained the power of a god. Apparently, until me, no one had tried pressing the parry button to beat him, which worked really effectively. And with that, I had completed Dark Souls Remastered. Overall, 1 out of 4, not Game of the Year.